I so love being at beach camp. I've been hanging out for this for so long. It's just one of those days that I look forward to for so long. But you know, not every day is a great day. Can I tell you about the most dreaded day that happens every year at school? This is the day to cause fear and dread into any student. It is the day that the report cards are given out. Your whole life, your whole destiny, your whole future summed up in one little teeny tiny card written by teachers who you deep down suspect are just getting revenge on you. They are going to present to your parents documentary evidence to convince your parents to ground you for life. This is one scary day. Now, when I was at school, my report cards always seemed to indicate that I wasn't working very hard. They would say nice little things, but I knew it was a secret code. It would say things like, "Oh, Tim is working well, but he could try harder." Now, I knew that was code, because I knew that wasn't what my teachers really wanted to say. If they had just been unleashed and they could write whatever they want, they would be saying things like this, you know. Tim should go far, and the sooner he starts, the better. That's what they would want to say. They would want to say, the disappointing thing about Tim is that he is depriving some village somewhere of an idiot. No? They just wanted to say that. They wanted to say, the gates are down, the lights are flashing, but the train ain't coming. They wanted to say, the wheel is still turning, but the hamster has long gone. Because throughout my entire school life, I actually kept getting the same consistent comment. Tim spends his school life in a daydream. Tim is always distracted and dreaming. If we could stop Tim dreaming so much, we actually might get some work out of him. And it's true. I used to dream at school. I was just being in another world. I wasn't aware of what was going on around me. And I'd end up doing really dorky things. When I was in kindergarten, there was this girl that I kind of liked. And I thought in my little 5-year-old way, I had to give her a little subtle message that I liked her. And I was trying to work out, how do I let this girl know I liked her? Well, it was lunchtime. She's sitting down having her lunch. And I decided to do something really suave just to leave her a hint that I really liked her. And so I went over and sat on her lap. What I didn't realise, that for lunch that day, she was having a meat pie. And what I also didn't realise was that she had that meat pie on her lap. So when I sat on her lap, I sat in her meat pie. And as I was going, I had little bits of meat pie just dropping off my little shorts. All the kids called me Pie Bottom. I just lived in that sort of dorky world. When I was in year 2, it was one afternoon after school, the kids had gone out, but my bus wasn't coming for half an hour. So just in my little daydream world, I noticed in the classroom the globe of the world, and I thought, I'll just go and have a look at the globe of the world. And when I went to have a look at it, I sort of knocked it off its table. It didn't break, but when I bent down to pick it up, that was the moment the teacher looked in the classroom, made sure there was no one there, and locked the door for the night. Went home. I just say, oh, what a lovely globe of the world, isn't that? Ooh, the door just locked. I tried to get out, but I couldn't. I tried yelling out the window, but it was up a couple of stories high. And I thought, I'm here. I'll spend the rest of my life in my grade 2 classroom. Well, anyway, I just worked out if I stayed there, eventually the cleaners would show up, someone would open it. I wasn't worried, but I was sort of, it was just starting to fill up, you know, and I was just thinking, locked in the classroom. What do I do? And I got to a point I just couldn't hold it in any longer. Our class had little pet goldfish. Hey, who's going to notice? I tell you what, I felt so much better. Don't know about the goldfish, but... The cleaners came, I got let out. The next morning, teacher opens the classroom, we all walk in and teacher says, boys and girls, I have some very sad news. Fred, our little goldfish, he's just floating on the top of his water. But I lived my days at school like that. I was in a dream world. And I want to tell you, every one of my teachers did everything they possibly could to try and stop me dreaming. Dreaming's not practical. You can't live in a dream world. Dreaming doesn't achieve anything. Get out of your dream world and get back into the real world. But you see, I kept dreaming. I kept dreaming of a world that could be better. I kept dreaming of a life that could be better. I kept imagining things that could be different if only we stopped doing things the way we did them. I kept dreaming that teenagers could be the most influential people on the planet. I kept dreaming that high schoolers could be the biggest agents for change on this world possible. I kept dreaming that adolescents wouldn't just accept things the way they were, but they would dream of a better way and they would actually move this planet forward. And I want to say I've never given up on that dream. 50 years later, I still dream that dream. 50 years later, I still see you guys making great choices which are going to make a difference on this planet. 50 years later, I still know that high schoolers have the most amazing potential, not just to accept the world that you were given, but to make a difference and to move us forward. Can I tell you one of the hardest things about being a teenager in the 21st century? Here's what makes it hard for you guys. Nobody wants you to dream. No one wants you to be different. No one wants you to be an individual. I was talking with one of our young guys here who's sort of in the middle of high school somewhere, and he's got a lively character. He's the sort of guy that would probably provoke teachers every now and again. And I was aware that he was probably being a little provocative sometimes, and some of the teachers were giving him a bit of a hard time. He was ending up in a little bit of trouble. And I was chatting with him, and I said, you know, if I were a teacher at school, I would love to have you in my class. And he says, why is that? I said, because you've got life. You've got energy. You've got a spark in you. You're going to question the way things are. You're going to challenge what I teach you, and you're going to bring that spark and that life that would bring a classroom to life. And his answer was very sad. He said, the teachers don't want life in their classroom. They want us to be all the same. They just want us to fit in. And sometimes we can have a problem. Some of the most marvelous people in the world are teachers, and we've got some great teachers here. But if we're not careful, we just end up producing cookie-cutter students so you can become cookie-cutter adults and fit in to our cookie-cutter world. You are growing up in a generation where nobody wants you to dream. You're growing up in a generation that's forgotten how to dream. And when we forget how to dream, nothing changes and nothing ever gets better. Come on, every single one of you has a dream in them. Every person has a dream. What's yours? What is it that you long for? What is it that you imagine with your mind? What is it that you are passionate about? What is the cause that you will live or die for? When you get to the end of your life, what is it that you want to be remembered for? You've got that dream. Every one of you's got the ability to make this world that is different and better, and every one of you's got the ability to make a life that is different and better. Because does it make sense? Everything that exists started as a dream. Everything that exists started as an idea. Your mobile phone started as a dream. When I was your age at school, That was a fanciful dream. Imagine having a little teeny tiny phone, not connected by any cables, able to dial anywhere in the world. Does that make sense? That was somebody's dream. Now it's reality. Your home computer, the internet, everything that exists started as a dream. Every movie you see started as a dream. Every band that exists started as a dream. Every song you hear and every iPod it's played on started as a dream. Every friendship that you have, every relationship that you get into started with a dream. And I want you to be a generation that keeps dreaming of big things. I love what one of the old writers said, a guy called George Bernard Shaw. And this is what he said. He said, some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream of things that never were and say, why not? Because some of you have stopped dreaming simply because you got knocked down. Some of you have stopped dreaming because somebody said it's a stupid idea. Some of you have stopped dreaming because somebody said it'll never work, it's not practical, give it up and just do something sensible. But success doesn't mean that you never fail. Success means I get knocked down, but I get up again. That is a definition of success. Does that make sense? Failure is getting knocked down one more time than you get up. Success is getting up one more time than you're knocked down. There was a teacher at a school teaching music, and they described one of their students this way. As a composer, he is hopeless. Their student's name was Beethoven. He got knocked down, he got up again. A guy called Thomas Edison, he invented the light bulb. Every light bulb you see started with this man. Before he made it successfully, he tried it 9,000 times and 9,000 of them failed. And yet those 9,000 failures produced the electric light globe. There was a student once who was cut from his high school basketball team. He wasn't good enough. His name, Michael Jordan. Elvis Presley's high school music teacher gave him a C and told him he couldn't sing. In the early 60s, a young group sent a demo tape to the Decca Recording Company. Executive who rejected it said, "We don't like their sound and guitar music is on the way out." That was the Beatles. They signed with Parlophone. They made an opposition company. They made a squillion. Does that make sense? Success doesn't mean I never fail. Success means I get knocked down, but I get up again. Some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream of things that never were and ask, why not? But what if your dream is not big enough? What if you just got a little tiny dream? See, what if your dream doesn't include God? Wouldn't it be terrible to dream all those dreams, to have all those goals and realize you'd missed out on the most important goal of all? Wouldn't it be terrible to get to the end of your life and look back at all the things that you've accomplished and realize there was one thing you missed out, and that was to fix up a great relationship with God? Does your dream include God? Because I want to tell you something, God's dream includes you. When God dreams about the future, when He dreams of what eternity will be like, He dreams of you being part of that. Now, wouldn't it be crazy if you had a dream that was smaller than God's, that your dream didn't include Him, but His dream includes you? This morning, I want to introduce you to a bloke who had a dream about fixing things up with God, but was looking in all the wrong places. I'm turning to John chapter 3, and that's where we're going to stay for a while. I'll read it out to you. John chapter 3, verse 1. There was a man of the Pharisees called Nicodemus. He was a member of the Jewish ruling council. Now you've got to understand who these Pharisees were. They were religious people. They meticulously made sure they kept every commandment that God had ever written, every phrase, every clause, and they made up whole books of things to help you keep those laws. He spent his whole life trying to get to God by obeying Him, doing the right thing, and being a good little boy. In the next verse, verse 2, he came to Jesus at night and said, "Teacher, we know you're a teacher who's come from God. No one could perform the miraculous signs you're doing if God wasn't with him." You see, Nicodemus is looking for that dream in his life. He's looking for that purpose. He wants to fix things up with God, but he's doing it the wrong way. He's trying to do it just by keeping all of God's laws and by human effort, making sure he can tick all the boxes. In fact, Nicodemus himself was a Bible teacher. He was a religious leader, and that's where he was looking to get things right. And you know, people sometimes still do that. They end up as a youth leader in church or a member of the band or a Bible study group leader. They do all these great church things and they think that somehow that's going to make them right with God. Nicodemus was a super religious leader of his day, and yet he had never discovered God. Jesus says to him in the next verse, verse 3, he says, "I tell you the truth, no one can see the kingdom of God unless he is born again." And Nicodemus is thinking, what? Born again? He can't get back the physical concept. And he says, this is the next verse, Nicodemus says, "How can a man be born when he is old? Surely he cannot enter a second time into his mother's womb to be born." He's just thinking in the physical way. I mean, imagine how crazy that would be. Imagine trying to crawl back into your mother. No, stop. Actually, no, stop. Don't imagine that. Don't, no. Those two people quietly vomiting down the back. Don't. No, stop. Think of anything else. But do you see how crazy Jesus' statement is? Jesus saying, no, don't get hung up on the physical things. Jesus is talking about being spiritually born again, starting life all over as somebody who loves God, starting life all over of someone who enjoys God, starting life all over as someone who dreams as big as God does. So Jesus explains it. This is verse 5. He says, "I tell you the truth, no one can enter the kingdom of God unless he's born of water and the Spirit." It's got to do with the activity of the Spirit of God. And Jesus goes on to describe these two sorts of birth and how they're different from each other. Verse 6, he says, "Flesh gives birth to flesh, but the Spirit gives birth to spirit." Now you understand what he means by flesh gives birth to flesh. There's a man and his wife, and they love each other very much, and God gives them a baby. You understand the basics of that. Flesh gives birth to flesh. Right? Human activity leads to a human response. But to have a spiritual birth, to be born from God, is a spiritual activity. And that's not something we can control. Who here remembers their birthday? Hands up. Who remembers their birthday? Yeah. Not just the anniversary of your birthday, your actual birthday. The day you were born. Do you remember the hospital room? Oh, I don't remember mine either. How much say did you have in your birth? Did your parents consult you? Did they give you any options to choose from? Was it a little timetable where you selected the seminar choices you want to go to? "Hi, I'm your dad, and we were thinking that we'd like to have a little baby, and we're just wondering, would you like to be born? Would you like to become our child and live in our family? Are you available like mid-July? We'd like to do it then." You did not have one say in your birth. Does that make sense? Whether you were born naturally or artificially, or whether you were born with an operation, or whether it happened in the backseat of a taxi, whether you wanted to be born or whether you struggled to be born, whether it was uncomplicated or whether there was medical complications, whether you resisted or whether you didn't have any say. Look at you. You're here. You got born. Now, if that's true in the physical sense, does it make sense that when you're going to be born spiritually, It comes from God. You don't get a whole say in how it goes. That is what spiritual birth is. Jesus says it's like the wind. This is verse 8. He says the wind blows where it pleases. You hear its sound, you can't tell where it's coming from, you don't know where it's going. That's what it's like to be born of the Spirit. You see, the wind's like that. You can hear the wind, you can feel the wind blow, you can map it on a weather chart, you can try and predict what it will be, you know when it's strong, you know when it's weak, but you can't control it. You can't tell the wind when to blow. You can't tell it how strong to be. You can't tell it what direction will go from. You can't plan that in 3 months the wind will be blowing in a certain way. And I think sometimes the danger in being part of such a great Christian community is that we end up thinking we can make things happen if we just get the program right, if we make the band hot enough, if we just get the activities right, if we just get our numbers up, if we just do more and more human activity, we think we're going to come up with a spiritual result. Jesus is saying, my Holy Spirit is there to grab you and guide you and to bring you a new life with Jesus. And you're probably thinking to yourself, you're thinking, you're telling me I should be a Christian, but you're telling me that I can't make it happen by myself? What's the deal? And that's exactly what Nicodemus says. Verse 9, he says, how can this be? Jesus answers verse 10. He says, you are Israel's teacher and you don't understand these things? Here you are teaching the Bible to other people. Here you are leading at your church and you don't understand that it's a spiritual activity when you become a brand new Christian? Verse 13, Jesus says, no one has ever gone into heaven except the one who came from heaven. He's talking about himself. Like, would you like to go to heaven? Like, when you die, would you like to spend eternity in heaven, worshiping God and loving God and having perfection? Well, the only person who can take you there is somebody who came from there. And Jesus is that person sent to earth by his Father that he might help you to make a decision so that you can go back there with him when you die. Can you see that Jesus is teaching us something really important? There's a whole new life waiting for you. And it's got to do with trusting Jesus. Many years ago, I came along to a camp, something like this. I was in my late teens. And I believed all the stuff. You know, all the stuff about Jesus, that was good. I had a Bible. I read my Bible. I knew it was true. I knew God was there. I knew I should obey him. I felt guilty when I didn't. I would have called myself a Christian. But at that camp, I suddenly discovered I was just involved in a human activity. I was just doing the church thing. I was just doing the Jesus thing. But I'd never taken the step of trusting him with my life. Now, I've got to warn you, if anyone asks you to trust them, you've got to be really careful who you trust. Can I suggest 2 questions you've always got to ask of anyone who is expecting you to trust them? Here is question number 1. Will they do the right thing by me? If I trust them, do they care enough about me that they'll do what's best for me? That's the first question. And here's the second question. Are they strong enough? Are they powerful enough to actually do what they say? Heard a story about a guy who was rock climbing, doing it very dangerously, doing it by himself, and he climbed all the way up this giant cliff. And he'd done very well. 1,000 foot up. He was doing brilliantly well. And he was putting his little pickaxe in and his ropes and getting his footholds, and he was almost at the top. He couldn't reach the top, but he was a step or 2 away from it. And he's standing on this little tiny rock ledge, 1,000 foot above the valley. And as he's standing there, trying to work out his next move, trying to work out where his next foothold will be, that little rock ledge that he's standing on is starting to crumble. It's starting to fall away. And he realizes that if he doesn't take action really fast, he's going down with it. So he quickly looks around and there's a little tiny branch just sticking out above him. And just as the rock platform totally collapses, he reaches out with one hand and he's hanging there from this little branch, 1,000 foot above his death, oh so close to the top, but he cannot reach it. This is what the philosophers would call an existential predicament. This is tough stuff. And so he calls out. He knows that he will not get anywhere. He calls out and says, is there anybody there who can help me? And then this lady's face appears over the cliff and says, I'll help you. Grab hold of my hand, let go of the branch, and I'll pull you to safety. And he's about to accept any offer at this stage, and then he realizes who the lady is. It's Miss Battersby. Miss Battersby was his year 6 teacher. This was a teacher he gave such a hard time to for the whole year. This was the teacher he taunted and insulted and refused to work for and disrupted for an entire school year. This was the teacher he hated. This was the teacher, and he made her everyday hell. This was the teacher at the very last day of year 6 as he was about to graduate into high school for the next year. This is the same teacher who said, I'm going to get you back one day. And he realizes the person who's asking him to let go of the branch and grab their arm is the person who said they would get him back. There is the first question you've got to ask of anyone who wants your trust. Will they do the right thing by me? Do they care enough about me to do the best for me? He decides it's not worth the risk, sends her away. Cries out, is there anybody else there who can help me? And then this man's face appears. He is the most kindly, caring man you could imagine. You can just tell by looking in his eyes that he genuinely cares about this poor person. And he says, grab hold of my hand, let go of the branch, and I'll save you. And he's about to do it, but as the guy leans over, he notices something. This guy's a little dwarf. He got lost from a traveling circus. He's just a little tiny guy. And he's the most caring person in the world, but the guy realizes if he grabs his arm, both of them will go base over apex all the way to the bottom. That is the second question that you've got to ask of anyone who wants your trust. The first one was, do they care enough about me to do what's right by me? The second one is, are they strong enough? Are they powerful enough to do what they say? And when I showed up at that camp all those years ago, I discovered the answer to those questions. Is Jesus strong enough to save me? Is he powerful enough? The answer is yes. Does he care enough about me to do what's right by me? The answer is absolutely yes. This camp is here to help you discover those answers for yourself. That you can know for certain that whatever you're hanging on to at the moment, whatever you're using in your life to make you feel successful, to make you feel like it's okay, that you can let go of that you can grab the hand of Jesus, and that he is powerful enough to rescue you, and he loves you so much that you know he will do the right thing by you. That's what we're looking at this weekend. And I'm wondering, will this be the camp? Will this be the weekend where you decide for the first time that you're going to let go of trusting in anything else, and you're going to take Jesus' hand and depend on him for your life forever? He absolutely cares about you. You know he will do the right thing by you. And there is nobody stronger or more powerful than he is to cause a miracle to happen in your life. How do I take that first step and commit my whole life to Jesus? We're going to find that out tomorrow. Thanks very much. See you then.